Hi again, this is Tupokigwe Isagah from Mzumbe University, and today is the day 2 of our workshop. And for me, when I attended also the course redesign, transformative learning and course redesign workshop in 2019, on the day 2, we were taught about learning outcomes, how to generate or craft the learning outcomes. Remember, I think you remember my first, in the concept map. Before generating the concept map, I had a big dream. And this was to have graduates who can manage data warehouse and projects and apply business intelligence tools to make smart decisions. And as I said earlier, that this is was the guidance actually for me to work on all the activities that we were told to work for those 5 days of the workshop. Now, again here in the learning outcome, I used the same dream. It was always at the back of my mind. So the major thing was, what skills now do I want my learners to acquire to ensure that my dream is achieved? And here I was referring to the 6 kind of skills of learning in taxonomy of significant learning, also known as TESCEA. And we were also introduced about these types of skills during the day 2 of the workshop. And from there now, I picked what skills that I wanted my students to acquire. And this included mainly the problem-solving skills, critical thinking, creativity, analytical skills. I wanted also my students to have interpersonal skills as well as self-management skills. So these are just among of the skills that I wished my students to have by the end, in the end of the course. And now coming to crafting the learning outcomes. What I did, I looked back into each concept and then tried to come up with a learning outcome for each concept. Now, since this was the course that was there before, so there were some learning outcomes that were there. For example, in concept 1, which is about data management, before the workshop, there was this learning outcome here: apply principles of data acquisition, sharing, and storage when designing data warehouse. But then during the workshop, on day 2, we were taught how also to create or to craft smart learning outcomes, those which can be measurable. And then, of course, here we were also taught that a learning outcome must have a verb, a context, as well as a content. Now, if you can look into my first learning outcome before the workshop, it's somehow mixed up and it's not even measurable. It is not smart, in short. Therefore, on this day 2, what I did was to work with my mentors and then we tried to change or craft learning outcomes which are smart. And from this concept, I got different 3 learning outcomes, which the first one is organize data for analytical purposes in organization. So for this case, organize is the verb, and then data for analytical purpose. Now this is the content, but then we have the context. Where is this going to be done? Which is organization. So this is a smart learning outcome. The second one was extract data from different sources in organization. And then I also had this third one here, which is to determine the requirements of data warehouse in an organization. But then it did not end there. As I said, the key thing for me was also to understand or to be able to know what skills and competences that my students need to acquire to ensure that my big picture is achieved. And for this case, for these learning outcomes, I thought that my student would have this foundational knowledge, will have ability to determine important data questions, and then be able to answer data and be able to answer specific questions. But also I thought my students will be able to have critical thinking as well as ability to work together. And for this learning outcome here, it was more into they should gain ability to do the analytical, to have analytical skills, but their ability to draw on local global levels and perspective. So that was the first concept. Now I had the same for the second concept, third, and fourth concept. For example, in the third concept here, maintenance and governance of data warehouse, before the workshop, it was all about, for this, the second learning outcome, before the workshop was manage data warehouse. But then after the workshop, whereby during the workshop, I was able, with the help of my mentors, to craft this and then change it to be SMART by having this learning outcome, manage data warehouse system in an organization. And for this learning outcomes, this particular learning outcome, I wanted my students to have the ability to understand the performance and use the reflection to improve the data warehouses, but then also ability to articulate different views and perspectives of data warehouse within an organization. And it was similar also in the fourth concept. Now, one thing that I also learned in these 5 days, actually by the end of the workshop, in the 5th day, because my dream was, I had this particular dream that I wanted my students to be able to become data warehouse managers, but then also I wanted to have a very transformative teaching and learning. And now from there, I came up with this learning outcome, which was actually not there before at all, whereby I wanted for my student to be able to collaborate with organization stakeholders in the design and implementation of a data warehouse project. And for this case, I wanted my students to have skills like self-management, teamwork, interpersonal skills, as well as understanding personal strengths and weaknesses, and ability to apply knowledge acquired to solve different challenges. So these are part of the learning outcomes, and this is how actually I crafted the learning outcomes. It was all about first have the better understanding and have an understanding of the big picture, and then already have the concept map in my mind, and then from there, from the concept map, now what skills also did I want my students to acquire by the end of the course, and then now from those skills, what is the learning outcome for each concept that will enable my students to acquire those skills that I wanted to acquire. So this is how we crafted the learning outcomes on the second day of the workshop. So I'm looking forward again to talk to you or to see you again in the next day, which will be assessment. Thank you.